What's up, guys? My name is Jerry, and today we're going to be talking about how Troy Weaver just might be the best GM in the NBA. And we're going to jump right into the video. Now, I know Troy Weaver has been the GM for the Detroit Pistons a little over 2 years now. And if he isn't the best GM in the league, then he has to be one of the best. Looking at what he was given when he became the GM for the Detroit Pistons and looking at where they are now, I think he's done a phenomenal job. He took the Pistons from having a laughing stock of a roster, and then in 2 years he gave them a roster that was full of promise. And we look at where it all began for Troy Weaver and his duties as GM for the Detroit Pistons. It started in the offseason, June 18th, 2020. Now we look at the Detroit Pistons roster when Troy Weaver took over as GM, and we really did have a laughing stock of a roster. We had a former broken superstar in Blake Griffin who seemed to be always injured, and he made a ton of money. And then we had a guy in Andre Drummond that we all thought was full of so much potential, and it just seemed like he could never take that leap to the next level, and he ended up being an overpaid role player. And then the young talent that the Pistons had at the time, most of them turned out to be mediocre or just playing bad. And then we just had a bunch of low quality role players, guys like John Henson, Don Maker, Tony Snell, and the list goes on. And Troy Weaver, he looked at this situation and he saw that it was really no way to go with this roster. And the first big step that he made was cutting loose of all this dead weight. He even got rid of the best players, Blake Griffin, Andre Drummond, Reggie Jackson. All of those guys were gone, and then he decided he was going to take the route of rebuilding in the draft. And that's one of the toughest things to do as an NBA franchise, is start all the way over from the bottom. And that's exactly what Troy Weaver did. None of the guys today that were a part of that 2020 roster, none of those guys are on the Detroit Pistons anymore. It's really a fresh, brand new team, and it started in the 2020 draft. Now, Troy Weaver had 3 key picks in the 2020 draft. He had the 7th overall pick, the 16th overall pick, and the 19th overall pick. At pick number 7, he went with Killian Hayes. At 16, he went with Beef Stew Isaiah Stewart. And then at pick number 19, he went with Saddiq Bey. And I'm honestly a big fan of all of these draft picks. And I know the one with the most controversy around it is Killian Hayes. And it's like the Detroit Pistons, our fan base, we're torn between liking Killian Hayes or hating him and not wanting him a part of the team. But I feel like he's still young. He's 21 years of age, still has a lot of time to grow as a basketball player. And I think the thing is, people aren't just seeing him progress at the way we're used to seeing young stars progress. He's going a lot slower, but I think the key thing is that he's progressing, and especially when he started to come off the bench for the Detroit Pistons last year. And if that's all he pans out to be, a 6-man or a guy to run the second unit, I think that could be really good for the Detroit Pistons. And I really like Killian Hayes' game, and I think the most underrated part of his game is his ability to play defense. He plays the passing lanes, he plays great on ball defense, he can pick up full court if you need him to, and I really like that part of his game. And then offensively, I think the only thing stopping him from averaging 10 plus points a game is his confidence, because he has the skill set. He can shoot the 3 ball, he can hit in the mid range, and then he's very crafty around the rim. And then the best part of his offensive game is probably his playmaking ability. He can make every pass, the bounce pass, he can throw lobs, he can make full court passes. He just has the skill set. It's just all about his confidence and his mindset. And I think he was a great pick by Troy Weaver. You look at the next 2 picks in the 2020 draft by Troy Weaver, I will give both of these A+. And looking at Isaiah Stewart, and I think the most underrated part of his game is what he can do on defense. First of all, he stands at like 6'8", so he's very undersized for the center position, and he's able to bang with the bigger bigs in the NBA, still be able to protect the rim and block shots. But what I think is so underrated about him is his ability to switch on to smaller players. In pick and roll situations, he can switch on to a smaller guard guard. He has the lateral quickness to stay in front of them, and then he usually forces them into a bad shot or a tough situation. And then offensively, I think he has the key to the Detroit Pistons offense this season. If he could consistently knock down that three-point shot, it will give the Detroit Pistons so much versatility, and they will be able to go a lot bigger in their front court. And last season, Isaiah Stewart finished the season knocking down 11 out of his 18 three-pointers. And then also in the summer league, he shot the three ball at a very high clip. And then he's also improved in other areas on offense, especially in the post and around the rim. He has the baby hook. He can dunk the ball, finish with his left and right hand, and he just has a very high motor on that offensive glass. And then he does the little things. He's the enforcer. He sets great screens, and he's just a really good team player. And I really like the pick of Isaiah Stewart. And then we look at Saddiq Bey, and I think this was a great pickup by Troy Weaver, and I really like Saddiq Bey a lot. And what I like about him is that he plays the game of basketball with a lot of heart, and then also you can tell deep down he has that dog in him, and he'll do whatever it takes to keep improving his skill set at the game of basketball. And watching him over his first 2 years in the NBA, I think it's safe to say that his floor is going to be a high-level 3-and-D player, and then he can have the ceiling of making multiple all-star selections. I see that within Saddiq Bey, and in his sophomore season, we saw him improve his game in a lot of areas. We knew he was good at three-point shooting. He got a little bit flexible, was able to put the ball on the floor, get to the rim, use his size and strength in the post and finishing around the rim. And then he's also a very solid defender. And then he had a game where he went out and scored 50 points, which is very tough to do at any level of basketball. And since he did it at the highest level, very impressive. So I love the pickup of Saddiq Bey. So Troy Weaver's rebuild got off to a great start in the 2020 NBA draft. And of course, those draft picks were not enough to fix the Detroit Pistons' problems. The next season, they had another down year, which led to them getting the #1 overall pick in the 2021 NBA draft. And Troy Weaver decided to go with Cade Cunningham, which I think is 100% the right pick. And drafting Cade Cunningham is probably going to be the most important part of this rebuilding stage for the Detroit Pistons, because going forward, he's going to be the player that they build around. He's going to be the #1 option, and most importantly, he has superstar potential. I see that in Cade Cunningham, and what you got to love about him is his size. He stands at 6'8", 220, but he plays the game of basketball like a floor general, like a point guard. And I think that's one of the most dangerous things about him, is that anytime Cade is going to be able to speed up the game of basketball, or he's going to be able to slow it down really whenever he wants to. And then you add in the factor that he's a 3-level scorer, a player that can knock down that 3-point shot off the catch, off the dribble, in the mid-range area, and then he can finish in almost every fashion around the rim. He can finish in the post, he can make layups with both hands, he can dunk the ball, he has the floater, he can just do it all when it comes to scoring the basketball. And also, what makes him such a threat is that he's a great playmaker and a great passer, and he analyzes the game of basketball a lot faster than most NBA players, which makes him so lethal in the pick and roll as a playmaker and as a scorer. And he just has a complete offensive game, and I think the sky is the limit for him on that side of the ball. And then defensively, he's nothing to slouch at. He's a willing defender. He plays good on-ball defense, and then he also stays actively engaged when he's playing help defense off the ball, helping guys, playing the passing lanes, blocking shots. Cade Cunningham, his rookie year, was a really solid player, and I think the sky is the limit for him. Now we look at the third and most recent offseason for Troy Weaver as a GM for the Detroit Pistons, and I think this one was by far his most impressive one, because he was faced with so many tough decisions. He had the decision of deciding to extend Jeremy Grant or not. He could have went out and pursued guys like DeAndre Ayton and Miles Bridges, or he could have went out and traded the 5th overall pick. There was a lot of things that he could have did that made sense for the Detroit Pistons, and I feel like this was the offseason we seen him work his magic, and this is why I have him in the upper echelon of NBA GMs. He went out and traded away Jeremy Grant, a player that averages 20 points per game in his league, and he's a very versatile defender. And in return, he got a 2025 first-round pick from the Milwaukee Bucks, and it was a trade at the time that didn't seem to make much sense for the Detroit Pistons. And then we fast forward to draft night. We really hit the jackpot that the Kings then decided to get Jaden Ivey, so he fell right into our laps. And then later in the draft, we seen Troy Weaver work his magic. He was able to use that pick that he got from the Milwaukee Bucks, and he was able to work out a 3-way trade with the Knicks and the Hornets, and he was able to turn that into Jalen Duren. So now the Detroit Pistons are walking out of the 2022 NBA draft with 2 lottery picks, 2 players that's going to come in and fit well with the team. And not only are both of these players electric, but they both are filled with so much potential, especially Jaden Ivey. And then also, he made a really solid trade with the New York Knicks. He was able to obtain some veteran talent, Nerlens Noel and Alec Burks. I feel like both of those guys are going to come in with their wisdom, their experience in the NBA, and help these young Pistons win some ball games. So I think Troy Weaver has just been doing a great job so far, and that's why I consider him to be the best GM in basketball right now. Just literally, he was giving nothing, and now he has turned the Pistons to one of the most promising teams in the NBA. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, comment down below if you agree or disagree, and then subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man. That's curtains.